Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be discussing and ranking all of the armor-piercing guns that the Inner Sphere has to fight the clans during the clan invasion. So to sum this up, these are ranged weapons that do a significant amount of damage at range to help defeat clan tech. Now, my bare minimum of damage I decided to go with for an armor-piercing weapon that could hit at range was 8. So the weapons that the Inner Sphere has during the clan invasion time period that they could use are as follows. We have the ER Large Laser, the ER PPC, the Large Laser, the Large Pulse Laser, the PPC, the Autocannon 10, the Autocannon 20, the Gauss Rifle, the LB-10X Autocannon, the LB-20X Autocannon, and the Ultra Autocannon 10 and Ultra Autocannon 20. So I'm going to run through each of these weapons in the following categories that I've decided are the best to understand their capabilities. The first one being damage, then range, then heat, then space/weight. Now I combined these two because I didn't feel either one was important enough to give it its own category, followed by intangibles. In each of these, I'm going to rank them from F at lowest all the way up to S at highest. And then after I have ranked each of these weapons in each of these categories, they're going to receive a score. F rank is worth 0 points. D rank is worth 1 point. C rank is worth 2 points. B is worth 3. A is worth 4. And S rank is worth 5. And I'm going to give you their rankings based on their score cumulatively through all of these categories. Now, I gotta tell you, I've already ranked them, I've already done all the math, and there are some surprises. Granted, this system is a bit of an arbitrary system just based on what I thought were the most important factors for ranking weaponry for fighting against your enemies, but there were some big surprises here. There were some things that really turned out exactly as I expected, but there are other weapons that really turned out in some strange places that I did not expect at all. So without any further ado, let's get into it with the first category, which is damage. Now for damage, we're going to start on the lowest in all of these categories and work our way up to the highest ranking. So to start with, the lowest ranking with 0 points is the F tier. Now obviously at F tier, the lowest amount of damage for any of these would be 8 damage, and that is reserved for the Large Laser and the ER Large Laser, who both do 8 damage at a fairly decent range, but that's not what this category is about. This category is about damage, and the thing about 8 damage is it's, you know, it's a sizable amount, but it's not that great. It's just not. It fails to hit a lot of thresholds. For instance, as an example, though this is something that will later be considered in the intangibles area, 8 damage is not even enough damage to get through a fully armored head and cause a potential critical hit. So there we have it, ER Large Laser and Large Laser in the F tier category of damage. Now, for damage for the D tier, we have the Large Pulse Laser and nothing else, because it is the only weapon that does 9 damage of any of these. It stands alone as a significant upgrade in damage from the ER Large Laser and Large Laser. Followed by, in the C tier, we have weapons that do 10 damage. We have the ER PPC, the PPC, the Autocannon 10, and the LB-10X Autocannon. Now, each of these weapons does 10 damage. You'll notice that I did not include the Ultra Autocannon 10 in this category. And that's because while the Ultra Autocannon 10 does do 10 damage per shot, it has the capability of doing 2 shots of 10 damage, possibly in different locations, possibly even in the same location. Because of the uncertainty, it's not going to go super high up the rankings, but it should be higher, in my opinion, than this tier of C, because it doesn't always just do 10 damage in one location. Moving up to the B tier in the damage rankings, we have the Gauss Rifle and the Ultra Autocannon 10. Now, I put the Ultra Autocannon 10 here because most of the time, the majority of the time, it will only do 10 damage. But some of the time, a bit less than half, it will do 20 damage, most likely in 2 different locations, though possibly in the same. So because of that uncertainty and because of the possibility of it being spread out, I decided to put it at the same ranking as the Gauss rifle that does 15 damage, which is a glorious amount of damage to do, and is the first head capping weapon in this tier ranking, because 15 damage is enough to completely blow the head off a mech if you get lucky and roll a headshot. Moving up to A tier, we have the 20 damage weapon. So for A tier, we have the Auto Cannon 20, and we have the LB-20X autocannon, because both of these weapons will do 20 damage at range. This is a significant amount of damage. This is basically the best of the best, except that there is one weapon left over. The only weapon that made it to S tier on damage, the Ultra Autocannon 20. Now granted, it does 20 damage per shot, but similar to the Ultra Autocannon 10, I felt like the Ultra Autocannon 20 needed to have one rank higher because of its potential to possibly do 20 damage in 2 locations, or even amazingly 40 damage in a single location, though rare. This is a severely damaging weapon. There is nothing better in damage potential than the Ultra Autocannon 20 on this list of weapons, which is why it rounds out our list at S tier. So now let's move on to the range category. Starting us off at the F tier. In the range category, we have 3 weapons. We have the Large Pulse Laser, we have the Autocannon 20, and we have the Ultra Autocannon 20. My, how the mighty have fallen. The Autocannon 20 has a range of 9. The Large Pulse Laser and Ultra Autocannon 20 each only have a range of 10 maximum hexes. These ranges are absolutely abysmal, and this is why these weapons fall all the way down to the F tier. I had no choice but to penalize them with no points in this category, because all of these are just awful, especially when fighting against the clan. As good as these weapons are in other categories, you have to survive a hail of weapons fire just to make it in range with any one of these 3 weapons. And that is a serious problem. Now moving up to the D tier, we have a single weapon who stands alone in the D tier, and that is the LB-20X autocannon, because they have a slightly improved range of 12 hexes. Still not great, but those 2 extra hexes can be make or break on occasion in a game if to be above the 10 hex abysmal range of things like the Ultra Autocannon 20. Now next for C tier, when it comes to range, we have 3 weapons. We have the Autocannon 10, we have the Large Laser, and we have the PPC, the Particle Projector Cannon. Now why did these weapons make it up to this higher ranking in the range category? It's because all of them have 15 plus maximum range. We have a 15 maximum range with the Large Laser and with the Autocannon 10. We have an 18 maximum range with the PPC. Now you might be saying 18 is a significant number, higher than that 15 on the other 2 weapons, and it's true, but it also has a minimum range penalty of 3, which I felt was enough to bring it down, because while both the Large Laser and Autocannon 10 get no negative extra difficulty for hitting at point blank range, the PPC does. So I put them all together in the C tier because that is where I felt they belonged. Now next in the B tier, with a maximum range of 18 without any minimum range modifiers, we have a pair of weapons that are starting to have incredibly decent range. We have the LB-10X autocannon, and we have the Ultra Autocannon 10. Now both of these weapons I feel had incredibly respectable range for attempting to pierce that clan armor. While they may not match their clan range counterparts, this is a decent range. 18 hexes away is a really decent range, even in a fairly open terrain battlefield devoid of many hills or forests. Next, for the A tier, we have 2 weapons that have risen to this height. We have the Gauss Rifle and the ER Large Laser. Now, the ER Large Laser has a maximum range of 19 hexes away. The Gauss Rifle has a maximum range of 22, but similarly to the PPC, the Gauss Rifle does have a 2-point minimum range penalty. So the first two hexes do make it a little bit more difficult to hit the target. This is a designated long-range reach out and punch someone kind of weapon. So I decided to put it in the same category, in the A category, along with the ER large laser. Even though the ER large laser, it has a couple hexes shorter range, it does not have a minimum range modifier. And finally, for S tier, we have only a single weapon in the S tier. We have the much lauded ER PPC with a maximum range of 23 hexes and no minimum range modifier. I always knew this was going to be S tier. I just wasn't really sure where a lot of the rest of these weapons were going to be in this table, but there was never any doubt that when it came to range, the ERPPC was going to be S tier 100%. Now next, moving on to heat. Heat is a very important category. I do feel that it is just about on par with damage and range. Granted, you can't kill an enemy without damage, and you can't kill them if you can't have them in range, but also you can't kill them if you're overheating to the point that you cannot fire. So heat is a very important category. So let's start off with the F tier weapons for the heat category. And for F tier, we have the ER large laser, the ER PPC, and the Ultra Autocannon 20. Now, the amount of heat that these three weapons accumulate is significantly varied, but they're all really bad for various reasons. So let's go over them. First off, the ER large laser accumulates 12 heat. Now, this is significantly less than the other two weapons in the F tier, but the reason it's here is what a huge increase this is from the normal large laser. To get the better range, you have to actually add in 50% more heat than the weapon it is based on, which is the same reason that the ERPPC is in this category, who accumulates 15 heat. But again, that is 50% more than the 10 heat accumulated by a PPC. Now keep in mind that you have a weapon here with the ERPPC that accumulates 15 heat while only doing 10 points of damage. Granted, its range is amazing, but this heat is just terrible. If you don't have enough heat sinks, having a couple of ERPPCs can really cause a heat spike. Generally speaking, mechs with too many ERPPCs will struggle to be able to fire them reliably turn after turn, and often have to cycle down to firing one less or even only one ERPPC just to cool off, and that becomes a real problem with mechs designed with multiple ERPPCs. Now, the Ultra Autocannon 20 only accumulates 8 heat per shot, but you're going to be shooting 2 at a time anytime you're fairly likely to hit, because you're trying to see if you can get those 2 hits. That's the whole point of the Ultra Autocannon 20, which means we're talking about 16 heat, which again is insane. Imagine a mech, a big mech it would have to be, with 2 Ultra Autocannon 20s. That's a lot of possible heat. You're talking about 32 heat if they are both double tapping. For all of those reasons, all of these weapons get no points. They are all in the F tier for the heat category. So now moving up to the D tier for the heat category, we have the large pulse laser and the PPC. Now both of these weapons accumulate 10 heat, which is still quite a lot, but is more acceptable considering the benefits you get out of them. The PPC accumulates 10 heat for 10 damage at incredible range, while the large pulse laser accumulates 10 heat for 9 damage with an improved chance to hit. So in both of these cases, I'm far more willing to have a couple of them on a mech, or even 3 or 4 of them on a single mech, because the perks to heat ratio is much more desirable. Now, moving up to the C tier for these weapons, we have the large laser and the Ultra Autocannon 10. And that is because both of them will produce on a normal turn exactly 8 heat. So you have the large laser does 8 heat for firing and doing 8 damage. You have the Ultra Autocannon 10 that does 4 heat per shot, but again, like the Ultra Autocannon 20, you're gonna wanna fire it twice. That is 8 heat for a potential 2 hits of 10 damage each. So both of these are solidly C tier for their heat consumption. Moving up to the B tier, B as in Bravo, we have the following weapons. We have the Autocannon 20 and the slightly cooler LB20X Autocannon at 7 and 6 heat respectively. Now these were so close I decided to pair them here in the same tier, but keep in mind that the LB20X is 1 point cooler. But this is at a point where you're starting to get a significantly smaller amount of heat added to your mech every turn for a huge amount of payoff, as these things can pump out 20 damage. Highly respectable and definitely not going to cause your mech to overheat. These are good weapon systems to start pairing with higher heat-based weapon systems, where these ones will not add significantly to the amount of heat you are building up in a turn when designing your mech. Moving off to A tier, we have the Autocannon 10. This is where we start to get into seriously heat-efficient weapons. This is a 3 heat weapon for dealing out 10 damage at range. Very heat-efficient. And moving up to S tier, we get the LB10X autocannon and the Gauss rifle. Now, the LBX-10 autocannon deals out 2 heat when firing, while the Gauss rifle only does 1 heat. But both of these weapons do so little heat that their heat can be ignored by a single double heatsink. Because of that, I had to put them both in S tier. I really did feel like there was a significant step up moving from that 3 heat of the Autocannon 10 to the 2 heat of the LB10X autocannon, because of the fact that that 1 double heatsink would be enough to absorb all of the heat from the LB10X autocannon, whereas you would need either 3 single heatsinks or 2 double heatsinks to absorb the heat from the Autocannon 10. And the Gauss rifle, I always knew this was going to be in the S tier when it came to heat management, because it only produces 1 heat when fired, which is just amazing. Next, we're going to move on to the category of space/weight. So what I did here was I actually ranked them for both space and weight and then averaged them together to figure out where they fell into this category. Let's go over where I found these to be and why. So starting off with the F tier, we have only a single weapon in the F tier, and that is the Ultra Autocannon 20. My, how the mighty have fallen. This weapon started off so strong with S tier for damage, and has now just been consistently, and this is one of the big surprises for me, consistently ranking bottom of the barrel in most other categories. So the thing is, the Ultra Autocannon 20, including the weight and space needed for the ammo to actually reliably fire this thing twice a turn and have ammo through most, if not all, of a normal size game, means it's going to take up 14 or more critical slots, and it will weigh 19 or more tons. This is an insane amount of space and an insane amount of weight, and I had to put the Ultra Autocannon 20 at the bottom of the barrel when it came to the space and weight category. So now let's move on up to the D ranking for space and weight. For the D ranking for space and weight, we have the Autocannon 20 and the LB20X autocannon, the upgraded version of the Autocannon 20, but they both, in my opinion, really kind of fall a bit short here and wind up in the D ranking. So for the Autocannon 20, we're talking about for putting in enough ammo so it can fire all game in a normal size game, we're talking about a minimum of 12. That's still a lot. 12 critical slots at a minimum of 16 weight. Whereas the LB20X autocannon, we're talking about a minimum of 13 critical slots and 16 weight. Now, this is because, of course, you do not want to take the LB20X autocannon without having both of its types of ammo. It really needs to have some ammo both for the scatter shot as well as the solid shot. Moving up to C tier for weight and space, we have the Ultra Autocannon 10 and the vaunted Gauss rifle. So the Ultra Autocannon 10 is going to take up a minimum of 9 critical slots to be fired all game and 15 tons, while the Gauss rifle is going to take up a minimum of 8 critical slots and 16 tons. These are doable. These are, in my opinion, totally allowable amounts of space under normal circumstances and weight under normal circumstances for the amount of damage or potential damage that these weapons will deal out. So I have no issue here. Here and up is where I stop complaining. Next, moving up to B tier, we have only one gun, and that is the LB-10X autocannon. Now, the LB-10X autocannon is really only going to take up about 8 critical slots and 13 tons in your mech design. This is not bad at all, especially considering the potential of this weapon. Then moving up to A tier, we have quite a few weapons actually sharing the A tier for space and weight. We have the ER-PPC, we have the PPC, and we have the Autocannon 10. So the two energy weapons of the three, the ER-PPC and the PPC, each only take up 3 critical slots, not taking up a lot of room at all, actually very small amount of room, and weigh only 7 tons. Now the Autocannon 10, again, with an amount of ammo that'll survive you through a normal sized game, will also only take up 3 critical slots, but does weigh significantly more at the 13 tons. This is a bit of an oddity of the way I did the rankings here. Because of how I averaged the two together, it wound up in the same tier. A little bit of an oddity. I would have actually liked to have found some way to force it down, but there weren't enough tiers to spread all of these out properly. So the Autocannon 10, for better or worse, stays in the A tier with the PPC and ER-PPC. Now moving up to the S tier, we have some weapons that are truly amazingly efficient when it comes to critical spaces and tonnage. We have the ER large laser, the large laser, the large pulse laser. These 3 weapons not only share a family of similar technology in their creation, but also are all incredibly small and light. So the ER large laser and the large laser both take up only 2 crits and weigh only 5 tons. This is a truly redeeming quality for these 2 weapons that otherwise score fairly unimpressively in a lot of the other categories. Now the large pulse laser also only takes up 2 critical slots, but does weigh 7 tons, a little bit more, but again, because of the averaging, winds up in the same tier as the ER large laser and the large laser for space and weight. The final category is intangibles. So here's where we talk about lots of little things that relate to the other categories or sometimes are completely standalone, but small things that do affect the way these weapons perform in general, positives and negatives. So we're going to start off with the F tier in the intangibles category, where we have the large laser and ER large laser. Both of these get a solid flunking score in this category for a number of reasons. Let's start with the positives of the things I like about these weapons, and unfortunately when it comes to the intangibles, they are few. So the first thing is these weapons have no ammo that could run out or explode. This is a big positive, and I do like this about them. But unfortunately, when it comes to intangibles, that's really about it in regard to the positive intangibles. When it comes to negative intangibles, these guys are not heat efficient at all. The ER large laser does a crazy amount of 12 heat for only dealing out 8 damage, 50% more heat than its damage. The large laser does 8 heat for its 8 damage, still equalizing the amount of heat to damage, but has a shorter range. Both weapons only do 8 damage, which is not really very good at piercing decent amounts of armor. As well as not being enough to pierce the armor of a head if you get a headshot to possibly cause a critical hit. The first time you hit an enemy mech in the head with either a large laser or an ER large laser, it's just going to be armor. Generally speaking, I would say that the only reason in regard to positively think of these guys in regard to intangibles is because of the lack of ammo to either explode or run out, and that's it. There's actually more negative about them than there is positive, which is why I put them in F tier. Next, we're going to move on to D tier. So the first weapon I want to talk about in D tier is the PPC. So on a positive, this does 10 damage. That is great. This is enough damage to get through all of the 9 maximum armor on a head and possibly cause a crit. In rare cases, a head hit on this could cause an instant kill on a mech, because if you crit and kill the pilot, that's game over for that mech. So that is a huge plus. Now, as a negative, this still is causing a huge amount of heat. You're causing as much heat to the mech that is firing it as you are causing damage to your enemy at 10 heat per the 10 damage. On a positive note, though, this is another weapon that has no ammunition to explode or run out, so that is really good. But overall, I would say that the positives are not really, outpacing the negatives. This in this kind of level in D tier, I feel like maybe the positives and negatives are actually rather balanced when it comes to intangibles. Moving on to the ER-PPC, we have a weapon that solves the range issues of the PPC, making a longer range, losing the minimum range, and that's great. Dealing 10 damage again, can bypass that 9 armor and cause a possible crit on the head. Also just does 2 more damage than the weapons that were in the F tier for possibly piercing armor on medium or smaller mechs that may have not as much armor in some locations. This is really good, but you also have a weapon that is causing 15 heat for only 10 damage, and that is pretty freaking abysmal. Also, you have a weapon that, on the positive, it again has no ammunition to explode or run out. Again, I felt like this is a place where the positives and negatives in the intangibles are kind of balanced, so I placed ER-PPC in the D tier here. Now, the Autocannon 10 is another weapon where there's a lot of negatives and a lot of positives, and I do feel they balance out. So on the positive side, again, we're doing that 10 damage. 10 damage is a decent amount of damage to pierce armor at long range. It also is enough to get through all of the 9 armor on a fully armored head. Now, this weapon, as a negative, does have, of course, ammunition that can run out or explode. But on another positive, to counterbalance that, you have the capability to take multiple kinds of ammunition. You can take armor-piercing ammunition on this thing, which helps to reduce the amount of ammo that's in each ammo slot, so when it explodes, you do less damage, and also has a chance to do critical hits at range, possibly when hitting the enemy. In my opinion, this weapon is the best of the autocannons to put armor-piercing in because of the fact that having its ammo doesn't bring it down to a ridiculously low amount, and also you don't get a huge negative modifier when checking for criticals. It's at that sweet spot between the Autocannon 20 and the Autocannon 5 where I actually think it's worthwhile to use armor-piercing rounds with this gun. Moving up to C tier, we have first the large pulse laser. So the large pulse laser gets a lot of the extra added benefits that you get with all of the energy weapons in regard to not having ammo to run out or explode. It has a lot of the disadvantages in regard to difficulties with heat management. This also has some of the difficulties that some of the F tier ranked weapons had, that it doesn't have enough firepower to fully pierce all of the armor on the head because it only does 9 damage. But the reason it's higher than all of the weapons that have come before this on the list in the intangibles tier is because of the -2 difficulty to hit the target. This makes this weapon way more reliable than any of the other weapons that are lower than on the list. A 2 difficulty reduction to hit the target is huge. This is a great weapon, and I think it totally deserves to be in the C tier for intangibles. Now, the next gun in the C tier is the LB-10X autocannon. This is a gun, again, can fire multiple kinds of ammo. You have the solid shot, you have the cluster rounds. This is also a weapon that on the downside does have, ammo that can run out or explode, but the positives of those multiple kinds of ammo being able to be fired at your enemy, in my opinion, significantly outweigh the negatives, and it's why it made it up to C tier. We also have the Ultra Autocannon 10, a weapon that potentially could do 2 damage in either 2 or the same location. The intangibles of that way overcome the intangible negatives of the ammunition possibly exploding or running out. Moving up to the B tier for intangibles, we have the Autocannon 20 and the LB-20X autocannon. Now, these 2 guns, both of them can fire multiple kinds of ammo. The Autocannon 20 can fire armor-piercing rounds, or it can fire regular rounds. The LB-20X could fire regular rounds, or it could fire the cluster rounds and you know, hit you with some buckshot. Both of these have a lot of variability in use because of the multiple kinds of ammo. Also, they do 20 damage, which means not only are these head capping weapons that completely blow a head off if you get to hit an enemy in the head, these are also weapons that they hit an enemy anywhere, they must take a piloting skill roll to stay standing. I feel the positives in the intangible roll thoroughly outweigh the negatives when it comes to the Autocannon 20 and the LB20X autocannon. Moving up to the A tier, we have only a single weapon. We have the redemption category for the Ultra Autocannon 20. It gets all the way back up to the A tier for me because everything I said about the fact that you can head cap with it, you can do 20 damage and cause piloting skill rolls with it, still holds true from the LB20X and the Autocannon 20. But in addition, when you're firing those 2 rounds, which you are most times when using this gun, you have the chance to possibly hit in the head twice. If you roll an 8 or higher, you could get 2 chances to check if you head cap. You also could do 20 damage, possibly twice in the same location for 40 damage, completely ripping another mech in half. It is rare, but it is a potential, just like the rare potential of blowing the head off a mech. The Ultra Autocannon 20, I felt, had to be A tier for these intangibles. It is a truly awesome weapon when you see it connect with an enemy and when it hits twice. Finally, the only weapon to make it to S tier for the intangibles is the Gauss rifle. Now the thing is, the Gauss rifle does have a few negatives. It does have the potential to have explosive damage happen from the weapon itself. It does have ammo that can run out, but the ammo that can run out cannot explode. And the explosion from the weapon only does damage equal to 1 shot from the weapon, which makes it nowhere near as dangerous as ammo from other ammo-fed weapons, making its negatives far more minor. Now, on the positive side, you have a weapon that can head cap. It can blow the head clean off an enemy while being just about tied in regard to range with the longest range weapon of any of these weapons, the ERPPC. The only thing really holding it back is the fact that it has a little bit of a minimum range. But this can head cap at the longest possible distance, which is insane. It also has a single ton of ammo, giving you 8 shots, meaning that you can have a fully functional weapon for most of a normal sized game that can fire every turn with only a single ton of ammo. It also, of course, is contributing almost nothing to your heat scale, as we went over in the heat. All of these things combined, now granted, we already scored it for the heat, we already scored it for the range, but these things combined make a combination of effects that make this one of the most legendarily deadly weapons in the game, and for good reason. The Gauss rifle is amazing. It's just the combination of effects that make the Gauss rifle the legend that it is. So I added up the points and we're going to run through this. We have 7 tiers in regard to final scoring. So I'm going to go through all of these and let you know where these weapons place. So in lowest ranked scoring, and I've got a surprise in here, one that I was not expecting when I created the scoring system. So I'm going to go over that in a moment. But in lowest possible tier, weapons that, in my opinion, when you're designing a mech, you should only take if you have specific reason to take them, for reasons that did not appear on this list. Because generally speaking, these are weapons that really are kind of, at least in regard to the way I'm scoring, kind of bottom of the barrel here. So first we have the large laser and the ER large laser. These guys did not score well in anything really except for weight and space. So I mean, if you're making a mech that is really needing to save on weight and space, getting a bunch of these in there, that could be really awesome. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be hard pressed to find a good reason to want to use these. If you are trying to save on weight and space though, and you have enough heat sinks to go around, yeah, go for them. But also, and here's where the big surprise was, lowest tier, we wound up with the Ultra Autocannon 20. Now, I'm a fan of the Ultra Autocannon 20, but God, I have to admit, after doing this ranking list, it has a lot of shortcomings, way more than I thought. The thing that always blinded me with the Ultra Autocannon 20 to thinking it was so good is just the potential for the damage. But wow, you know, looking at this when doing a mech design, unless I have a specific reason to want to do Ultra Autocannon 20s, other than just the fear factor, because there is that fear factor that your enemy feels when he sees Ultra Autocannon 20s coming at them. But other than just the fear factor, the only other thing I could I have to say on the Ultra Autocannon 20 is I'll probably never put it in a mech design again over a Gauss rifle. It doesn't feel worth it to me. Moving on to the next tier, we have the large pulse laser and the PPC. Again, I'm a little bit surprised because these are two weapons I like a lot. I'm a big fan of large pulse lasers. I'm a big fan of PPCs. One of my favorite assault mechs is the version of the Awesome with the 4 PPCs. Love that thing. It can dish out a ludicrous amount of damage. Granted, that Awesome does have enough heat reduction capabilities to actually fire 4, then 3, then 4, then 3, and actually fire most of the PPCs every turn, and that's pretty amazing. That is a lot of damage at range, but actually, I'm a little surprised these guys ranked as low as they did. Also, the large pulse laser, I'm a big fan of that on a lot of mechs, one of which, of course, being the Wraith. I'm a huge fan of the Wraith. Love it for its interceptor capabilities. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised these ranked second to lowest. So now moving on to third to lowest is a weapon, a single weapon, that I'm a bit surprised ranked higher than some of the weapons that ranked lower than it, and that is the Autocannon 20. The vanilla Autocannon 20 with this ranking system ranked higher than the Ultra Autocannon 20, higher than the PPC, higher than the large pulse laser. I mean, this is kind of blew my mind a little bit. Generally speaking, once you move to the Clan Invasion time period, I generally think of the Autocannon 20 as being passé. You should move on and be doing LB20X autocannons and Ultra Autocannon 20s. But apparently, while the LB20X is still ranked higher, it's coming, by my own ranking system, the Autocannon 20 ranked higher than the Ultra Autocannon 20. I was very surprised by that. Moving on to the next ranking, we have the ERPPC, the LB20X autocannon, and the Ultra Autocannon 10. Now, I was surprised that the Ultra Autocannon 10 ranked dead even with the LB20X autocannon and the ERPPC. I'm also surprised the ERPPC ranked this high. I'm generally not as much a fan of the ERPPC because of how poor its heat consumption is. I personally, not doing this ranking, just thinking of them in my head, would not have valued the ERPPC as high as either the LB20X autocannon or the Ultra Autocannon 10. So this was kind of another surprise tier for me. Moving up one more tier, we have a single weapon. We have the Autocannon 10, and this is a huge surprise because by my own ranking system, the Autocannon 10, a weapon I generally think of as being very passé, by this time period, I ranked it higher than the Ultra Autocannon 10, higher than the Ultra Autocannon 20, higher than the Autocannon 20, higher than the ERPPC, the PPC, the LB20X autocannon. This kind of blew my mind. I guess I need to do some more Clan Invasion designs using the regular old Autocannon 10, possibly to maximize on the use of armor-piercing rounds, which is one of the reasons I do really actually like using the Autocannon 10. But generally only use it in succession war designs, so maybe I have to try some later designs with it. Next, with only a single weapon in this category, we have the LB10X autocannon. This is not a surprise that this ranked higher than the Autocannon 10, and is also one of the reasons I very rarely use Autocannon 10s in Clan Invasion or later time periods in my own designs, because the LB10X autocannon does generally surpass it, though I am surprised how close the Autocannon 10 came in my ranking systems to the LB10X. And finally, by far and away, the highest scoring weapon, the Gauss rifle. Because the Gauss rifle may not have been S tier in every category, but it was always scoring well in every category. I don't think it got a single F tier ranking anywhere. In point of fact, looking at it again, it never scored lower than a C. The C was the lowest, and that was just on space and weight, because the darn thing does take up a ton of space and weight, but still not the worst of any of these weapons. Now, this was not a surprise either. I always knew the Gauss rifle was going to come on top.
Everybody knows the Gauss rifle is the best armor-piercing weapon that the Innisphere has to fight the clans against, but a lot of the other placements really did surprise me. So let me know in the comments down below, how would you have done the ranking system different? Because I know there are people who are going to second guess me on how I designed my ranking system. How would you do the ranking system differently if you were to rank the armor-piercing weapons? And if you guys enjoyed this different kind of video, maybe I'll do another list of the best cluster-hitting weapons to fight the enemy with in the clan invasion time period, or something of that sort. Let me know if you'd like to see something like that. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.